Welcome back, one and all, to another kind of a faction focus, but not really. It's more like a semi-review, good, bad, ugly type breakdown of part 1 of 4 of the Forge World Imperial Armor Compendium. Thank you, Games Workshop, and I guess Forge World. It's all kind of one conglomerate now, as you know, it has been for some time, really, for sending us this copy for us to have a review and a peruse, and for me to see what has been taken on board in my playtesting stuff from a selfish perspective. So the way this is going to work, guys, is we're going to split this into, as we say, 4 different videos for your viewing pleasure, so that's more content for you, and obviously it means we can go into a little bit more detail rather than trying to blaze through all 200 and something pages. And today, in case you cannot tell from the title, will be about the Space Marines,
yes,
the Adeptus Astartes,
yes,
the warriors of the Imperium, and the
Emperor's
finest
lovely boys.
All lovely boys, yes. So what we're going to do is we're not going to go through every single data sheet, nor are we going to sort of talk about them in the context of this is really good for White Scars, this is really good for Space Wolves, this is really good for Imperial Fist, because that will take forever, and we'll probably be using that a little bit more in later faction focuses where we'll kind of explore things a little bit more. So what we're going to do is give you kind of a general overall breakdown of the stuff, and then sort of talk about a couple of winners and losers in our opinion. So think of it less as a good, bad and ugly and more of a overview and winners and losers. Yeah. We'll just call it good, bad, ugly because it sounds nicer. So, Mr. Beard, you have the book, you have the power.
The term of power, yes.
Ah, yes. So as a general overview, you start off with the abilities, and we'll address a couple of elephants in the room, as it were. Yeah. Martial Legacy, how do you feel about it, Beard?
Right, so initially I saw it, I looked at my models on my shelf, and I went, the models. But I think it's probably actually, there's a lot of intention behind it being there. It's not just to make everyone sad, it's to ensure that the armies you take are a bit more sensible, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been such a long time where you just take 3 of a really good unit.
Yep.
And which is fine, but I think this definitely encourages you to sort of really choose what you want to take. Yes, you can put your cool big Forge World model on the table, but yeah, it's been done for good reasons, I think.
Yeah, and it's not to say that all of them have Martial Legacy. There is a, and I know some people are probably going to absolutely despise this notion. There is a fluff reason behind it. It's because these things are supposed to be super rare.
Yes.
There is no need for any army to have had 3 Scorpiuses and 2 Leviathans in the same army. Yeah. You were lucky to have one of those in the Heresy when they were commonplace.
Yeah. Back in my day.
So I completely agree. It's one of those things that's been done for a good reason. Now, you could have argued, why not just increase the points? Well, yes, but you got to remember that everyone's getting more CP now, generally. And this is kind of where you can get into some real interesting like list build type things. If you want to run a bunch of Forge World stuff, you absolutely can, but you're going to have less resources. And I quite like the idea of CP being used as a resource pre-game rather than just something to use in-game.
Yes.
It represents your overall sort of multifaceted nature of resources that an army would have.
And battle plans.
Yeah, so it's, I agree with you to an extent. When I first saw it, it was a bit like, that's going to sting certain armies, but in practice, I don't think it's quite as bad as it appears on paper. It's only bad if your army was completely comprised of nothing but the best Forge World stuff. And even then, those things have taken a hit anyway.
Yeah, there's a really cool quote. So this is in the Chaos Leviathan Dreadnought section, but there's a little quote next to it which says, Leviathan Dreadnoughts are a sight of extreme rarity on the battlefields of the 41st millennium, their usage reserved for the most crucial siege actions and grinding attrition wars.
Yeah.
So it does show that they're combining the rules with the fluff.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
The other alternative would have been just to make them 0 to 1. Now, some of you new players will be thinking, well, what 0 to 1? Whereas some of you veterans are probably going, Ah, yes, the good old days. So in sort of 3rd edition, 4th edition, and a little bit of 5th edition as well, I believe, certain units were 0 to 1, which meant that regardless of your army size, regardless of what you're playing, you can have a maximum of 1.
Yep.
Chaos Lords, for example, were 0 to 1 in the 3.5 Codex. Also, Chaos Lords could be 200 and something points out of your 1500 point army and could walk through pretty much everything in the game because Chaos Lords used to be awesome. But the point was, it was to represent these incredibly rare, powerful things. Greater Demons were 0 to 1. All Greater Demons. You could have 1 Greater Demon in your army. Not 5, like you're currently seeing with a lot of competitive demon armies. 1 total. So it would have been interesting to see them go back to that, but I think this is a much fairer way of doing it because it still has a cost involved without them going to something, oh, we'll just make them 400 points.
Yeah. And it does make it restrictive. If people have been, I mean, we're in 3rd and 4th edition, there were models hadn't been around for that long, people hadn't been in the hobby for that long. But now, 5 editions on, people have got huge armies.
Yeah.
And I think Games Workshop are intentionally making sure that they don't want to disallow you using every model that you have in your collection,
whilst at the same time allowing some semblance of balancing factor. It doesn't always work, and we'll touch upon that in a bit more in the losers section, but we just wanted to sort of get that one out the way. A lot of the stuff that we're going to say here also applies to Chaos. That will be another video that we're going to do because they have their own unique stuff, but so, you know, if you're a Chaos player watching this, cross-reference. So, you know, it's a lot of what we say for that will apply later. The next bit is the chapters.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a waste of 2 pages, in my opinion.
It's very odd because they've taken the time to go through and put designer's notes on here, but there's no reason for it.
Yeah.
There's no traits for Red Scorpions and Minotaurs.
Yeah, we recommend. Yeah. Which is fine, and I kind of get it because they don't want people to have been using them with their particular sort of sense in mind, or their sort of particular chapter traits in mind, or their particular play style in mind. But at the same time, that would be like turning around and going, well, if you want to play Space Wolves, just pick your own, right?
Yeah. It's a shame because it definitely, they've put some fluff in here, but then when you're actually using the army, there is none, really, to an extent. And that goes for the Warlord traits as well. So for each of these chapters of renown, each of the Warlords have the same Warlord trait. Yeah. And it's just +1 leadership.
Any of the named characters, if they're your Warlord in this book, must use Inspiring Presence, which is a 6-inch aura of +1 leadership. That's just, that is so lazy.
It's a shame.
Now, I'm not saying that you should let them have the choice. You know, I'm not saying that you should be able to freely choose because no named character does that. Yeah. But it should be like Asterion Moloch, for example. Man is an absolute beatstick. Yeah. He should have something like Sword of the Imperium, like he gets extra attacks and strength on the charge. Yeah. Or because the Minotaurs are kind of like an executioner type chapter. They're sent after other Marines. He should have like the character hunting one because he's bringing these traitor Marines to justice. Yeah. You know. You should have who was Tyberos, the Red Wake, should have Fear Incarnate. Yeah. Incarnate. Fear Incarnate. You know, the leadership debuff. Like, is it the most effective Warlord trait for him? No, but it's evocative of the fluff. Yeah. This guy who there's artwork of him, like literally, because he's like big even for a Space Marine, apparently.
Oh, he's big boy.
Like he's like really big in Terminator armor. And there's a brilliant piece of artwork. I think it's fan art actually, and he's like towering over this traitor guardsman, just covered in blood. Yeah. You're not telling me you wouldn't be scared of him? Oh no. Sorry, he's inspiring. Yeah. It's like it just feels quite lazy.
It's even if it was an actual carbon copy of another Warlord trait, which fit the fluff and had a different name. Yeah, fine.
All they needed to do is just say that you use this Warlord trait from the Space Marine Codex. Yeah. Like they've gone to all the effort to give you recommendations for this, and then gone, oh, just slap +1 leadership aura on all of them if you want them to be a warlord. And some of these characters, they're chapter masters. They should be a warlord. That's a whole different issue with me and named characters and warlords and warlord traits and chapter masters. I don't understand why a chapter master would answer to a chaplain or to an apothecary just because you want to save a CP on the warlord trait, but. You know, so it's disappointing, and even from a fluff perspective, you kind of go, yeah, like it's, you know, you'd want Asterion Moloch the chapter master of the Minotaurs to be your warlord, right? But then he gets a rubbish trait, and it's just...
It's a shame.
It's a pity. It's a pity. In friendly games, I would let my opponent choose.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be anything game breaking to let them have a warlord trait from the Space Marine Codex, really. And that's what I would limit it to. I wouldn't let them go, oh, today I'm an Imperial Fist so that I can half damage on Asterio Moloch.
It's reasonable.
Yeah, or Carib Cullen is going to be a Salamander today, so he's toughness 9. Like that I wouldn't allow.
Yeah.
Or Brea Fashmant or stuff like that. It just feels very done, like kind of like as an afterthought, and almost in a way of just going, oh, we kind of just need to acknowledge that these chapters exist. Okay, I guess we'll just do that.
I guess.
Like it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
So those are some elephants. And that's kind of it in terms of just the general overall stuff.
Yep.
I think more like for the most part, your Forge World models are balanced now, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say.
It's incredible. It's never been done.
It's literally never been done. For the most part, there's still a few glaring issues. There's still a few things where you just kind of go, this is a bit much here. And there's other things which we were sort of having a skim through before we sat down to talk about it properly, where we've looked at it and gone, why? Like, why would I take it? And you're going to get that in every book. I think Forge World especially has always been like that, though. It's always been absolutely atrocious or busted. There is no in between with Forge World, historically. Now I think that gap has gone from sort of there to there. It's a lot closer now. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff which has received nerfs. There's a lot of stuff which has received buffs. But I think for the most part, it's brought everything in line, which is what balance is about. So we'll take one of the big ones, for example, the Leviathan. Now, the Leviathan previously was pretty obnoxious. There was no need for this thing to be as tough, if not tougher than a knight in certain circumstances. It is no longer that. It is no longer as powerful. A lot of people are really, really, really upset over the whole, I've lost ballistic skill, I've lost weapon skill, I've lost rerolls, I've lost shots, I've lost invuns, I've lost toughness. And you know what? I get it. You've also lost 130 points. So that's like that for me is a balancing factor. I now am not too concerned about a Leviathan being placed on the field. Now, with Duty Eternal as well, just built in, they're still really tough. They're not as they were, which is fine. And I understand that if you had them because they were a linchpin of your army, that was probably saying a lot about the army as opposed to the model itself, when one model is so key to how an army runs. To the point where people were taking 2 Leviathans, if not 3. I did see a few lists floating about saying, I'm going to run 3 Leviathans. With a chapter master and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like, you can run that now. It just won't be nearly as effective. But also you'll have the points to do a lot more stuff. So it swings and roundabouts, and balance is not about going, oh, well, this has been really powerful for too long, we're now going to completely nerf it to the ground. It's about going, right, let's readdress the scales. And I think the Leviathan especially is a great example of that, because yes, on paper, he's not as tough and he's not as killy, but he's still really good for his cost, in my opinion. He costs you a CP to run. He doesn't get rerolls. That's fine, in my opinion, because...
I think martial legacies kind of come up as a really big issue for some people with armies with a lot of Forge World, because they're thinking, I've got to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 command points to take all my units. But in reality, if you go through the book now and you look at the models that you really like and the ones with good rules, you're going to take 1 or 2, maybe 3. Let's be honest. There's some units which has a very low points cost, like the rapier carriers, for instance, and but they don't even have martial legacy.
No, they don't.
So I think the book on the outside looks a bit like, oh, everything's ruined. But actually, martial legacy isn't there for all of these units. and it just gives you the ability to take a Leviathan or two and have tons of points left over, which is nice. Whereas before, people were building lists around a Leviathan and probably restricting themselves a bit. So there's some really good choices made here. Some not so much, but
some not so much. And I think, again, with the Leviathan, it kind of goes back to that. And I know, again, this is one of those sort of contentious points of like, how dare you bring fluff into my war game? Yeah. It's been there for 30 years. These are incredibly rare relics of the chapter that are going to be brought out in the most dire of circumstances. Leviathans don't have the core keyword. Well, if I remember rightly, a lot of people were saying it's really stupid that Space Marines have core on everything. Well, now that they don't, and now everyone's really upset that they don't have core on something, it's like, you can't win. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look, I still think Leviathans are great. They're definitely one of the winners, in my opinion, from the book, because they have been objectively worsened, but at the same time, they have been balanced, which is only good for the game, making them a winner. And also because they're so much cheaper, you can have one in now without going, oh, okay, I kind of, as you say, need to build around it. You can just plonk a Leviathan in and go, like, he's going to do the business. He won't be as effective as he was, but he's definitely going to do some business. And he still needs to be dealt with. And they will still take a bunch of firepower to deal with.
Yeah.
You know.
But when it is gone, it's not as big of a deal as it was before.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Special characters. So that was just kind of a big example of a winner. So special characters are kind of just...
Kind of called the Risen! Straight into Leviathans.
Straight into Leviathans. Right? Yeah, I mean, we won't run through all of them. I think for the most part, I mean, they're special characters.
Yeah.
We've kind of touched upon the issue of the Inspiring Presence. One thing that kind of just irks me a little bit is Huron. So I get it. Huron has a model. He has a pre-falling to chaos model. He has a model of him in the Badab Crusade. Yeah. And then for all of that time and ink that they spent on designers' commentary about, we suggest you use these chapter traits, they don't have one here saying, so Huron was during the Badab War and Primaris weren't a thing.
Yeah.
We recommend you don't use Primaris. Now, they did that with Chaplain Cassius in the Death Watch supplement.
Yes.
They didn't do it here.
Yeah.
It would have been one line.
It doesn't make any sense.
Huron did not exist. Huron as an Imperium, Primaris weren't a thing. Don't use them in the army with Huron.
It's very annoying. Just leave him for 30k. There's loads of 30k players out there.
Well, he wasn't in 30k.
Oh,
he was in like the year 30, or the 36th millennium or the 37th millennium, whenever it was. I'm sure someone will correct me. So because I don't think any of these characters are like heresy characters, but it's something like that where you just kind of go, it would have been one line, and it's not, and that's not to say that it's game breaking if you take him with Primaris, because he's still a chapter master. You can just do that normally with a normal size captain and him, but from a fluff perspective, and any player that's using him for the fluff aspect is never going to worry about it, because they'll be like, yeah, obviously I'm not going to use Primaris, because why would I?
Yeah.
This is my pre-heresy, or I keep saying heresy, my pre-renegade Astral Claws army. But it's just, if you're going to have rules about, not even rules, if you're going to have recommendations on fluff and how to run stuff, do it for everything, be consistent, and I don't know why it annoys me so much. It's just...
It just feels a bit sloppy, I think. Yeah.
Definitely.
He's quite good, though.
I mean, he's an absolute bad man. And this is the thing. He's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
He's priced, and all the special characters are pretty darn good.
Yeah.
They're expensive, but they're good.
For a reason. Yeah.
But it's just little things here and there. For the most part, there's not really much to say about them.
Yeah. There's not one here that really stands out as being a must-take. And even so... You have to be running these funny chapters to take them. So.
But again, remember that you don't have to run the chapters that they're telling you to run.
Yeah.
You can just go, I'll just pick and choose my traits, which is... Yeah, again, it'd be like saying, I really want... I'll run Azrael, but I want to use successor traits because I can build something rather than Grim Resolve. And you just kind of go, no, that's not how it works. Why is it like that here?
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just weird.
I think this is probably the least thought through section of the book.
Yeah.
The rest makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
I think these just feel like they're a bit sort of tacked on.
Yeah.
But
they have models, hence why they're there, and they because they're associated with very specific chapters. That's why they kind of felt like that they had to do it.
Yep.
But oh well. That's that bit done. Let's go on to the real meat of the Space Marine section, which is all of the vehicles.
Yeah.
So again, we won't go through every single one, but there's some definite clear winners. We've spoken about the Leviathan at length. I think the Duradio is still pretty good.
An elite choice now. No more heavy support.
Yeah. Again, not core. Lost the ballistic skill. I think power-wise, it's still about the same in terms of its shooting. I think.
What in terms of?
Like its loadouts and stuff. You know a lot more about them than I do.
I think for the most part, the Imperial version is pretty much the same.
Okay.
The Chaos one is basically a carbon copy of this now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no massive changes. The only thing I'd need to check is if the missile launcher, I don't know if that was ignored line of sight previously for Imperium.
I don't think the Imperium version was.
Right, okay, that might be why.
I think it was always like just a missile launcher type thing. I think they've lost the Invon shield thing. Yes. It's not an option anymore. Pavis? I don't know how you pronounce it.
It's funny, they never made a part for that.
Oh, I thought they released a part for it relatively recently.
They did a new anti-air missile for the top. I don't believe that they came out with the void shield looking thing.
I thought, has that not come out?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, because I thought I'd seen it. Maybe I saw it come out. I don't know.
I might be wrong.
Tell us in the comments whether they did release it or not.
And the anti-air missile definitely has.
Yeah, which that just makes it even weirder if they have released a bit for it. Why not have it? Because every other heresy option is on the radio.
Yeah.
So that's, let us know. If they have released a bit for it, it's kind of weird that they don't have the rules for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. What's some next ones?
So, Contemptor.
You're not a fan.
No.
And I kind of agree. Now, obviously for Chaos, they don't have a Contemptor, but for your Space Marine sort of equivalent, which is kind of what we're talking about today, I think just a normal Contemptor's better.
Yeah.
Because he's cheaper, pretty much the same weapon loadouts. The only difference is if you really want to take one of the special weapons like the Volkite, because he's got Volkite or autocannons or the Graviton Blaster, the Conversion Beamer, and a Plasma Blaster.
The Plasma Blaster.
So it's kind of like, and I think he can take 2 guns, can't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still core.
They come with 2 heavy plasma cannons, like as
basic.
Base.
Yeah. So if you want to run like the Mortis pattern, so your 2 guns, you kind of have to do this.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the guns that they have are worth running over the normal version and paying the CP for the privilege, especially because he's lost the shrug now.
I think the twin Volkite covering is an option.
It is interesting. It's interesting.
But I think the thing for me...
Do you think that's worth taking over, from a Space Marine perspective, do you think that's worth taking over a normal Contemptor?
No.
That one particular weapon?
No. I think the main problem I have with the Relic, and I get why they've done it, but Martial Legacy is why I wouldn't take them. It doesn't feel worth it spending a command point on that unit. Personally.
Compared to the Leviathan or the Duradio.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
For sure. Especially because they have gone from BS2 to BS3. I'm not a big fan.
Sure.
Sadly.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Contemptor is a bit of a loser.
Yeah.
Not much more to say on him really. We've spoken about the Leviathan. He's next. What is next? What are some other big winners? I mean, the land speeders. They're fine. You were only really ever seeing them in Salamander's armies in tournament settings to give them obsec, which you can't do anymore because of the FAQ anyway. Are you going to continue to see? I mean, maybe they're cheap enough, but I think you can get your firepower elsewhere more efficiently now.
Speaking of which, the Death Storm drop pod.
See, I quite like the Death Storm.
I think they're pretty cool,
I think
man.
it's cheeky.
Yeah, you drop them in turn 1. You take them with the Death Storm cannon array or the Death Storm missile array.
Yeah.
18-inch range, but you just shoot at everything within 18 inches.
Which is really fun.
It's great. If you're facing an army with a lot of vehicles, drop that in turn 1. Strength 8 -2 D6.
Well, -3 because of your Dev Doctrine.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Now, you are only BS4.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer,
and you are limited to, obviously, your 9-inch away from stuff. But because it happens every turn that it's alive, it has to be dealt with. And it's not difficult to deal with, but that's something that your opponent's not shooting at. And it's relatively cheap for its cost. I think it's a good distraction. It's certainly not what I would call a competitive choice, but it's definitely a fun choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think they're really cool. Those in Raven Guard as well, I think are really cool because they're really big users of Death Storms, which is cool.
It might seem insane, but if you were to take multiples of those,
it'd be actually pretty for free. So I think it's 140 points with the missile launchers.
Yeah.
So for what's that? Free for 420 points.
Yeah.
About that.
That's a tremendous amount of firepower.
Turn 1, every unit that is within 18 inches of them is going to be taking between 2 to 6 missile launcher shots or between 6 to 18 assault cannon shots. And you're going to be in Dev Doctrine. Sure, you're Ballistic Skill 4. Can't be helped. But that's pretty scary.
Yeah, and
I think it's really cool.
Then you've got to deal with 3 of them as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and if depending on your mission, you could park those on objectives already.
Yeah.
Sure, you've got the drop pod problem of someone can just charge them and go, you can't shoot me, but they're still going to be able to shoot you with their own guns. So, yeah. Land Raider variants are, they're Land Raiders. Yeah. They're Land Raiders. They're very expensive for what they do. They do pump out a bunch of shots, but
they're Land Raiders.
They're Land Raiders.
Let's move on.
Swiftly.
The Sakarans!
Now, you're a big fan, as am I. I've always liked the look of the Sakaran.
The problem I've got with Sakaran is they're a relatively new unit. They turned up in 7th edition, as far as I can remember.
Yes.
I agree. Fantastic looking model. One of the best tanks that Forge have designed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they've changed so much in 3 editions. They've gone from heavy support to elite, so they're back to heavy support. Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I think they've sort of gone from being one thing to very much being like an assault-focused tank, and now they're sort of back to being a heavy support variant. But with the four versions available, 5 versions, of course, of the Omega, they're good.
Yeah, I think
even the base version is good.
I think they all have a place.
Yes.
Yes, you're paying Martial Legacy, but for that you get a 14-inch move, toughness 7, 12 wounds.
14 wounds.
14 wound, 2 up save tank.
Now. Yeah.
They're pretty darn good.
The 2 up save came out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting that.
No, neither did I. But I do get it because I think the fluff for it is that it was a halfway design point. It was designed in the Heresy to bridge the gap between Land Raiders and Predators.
Yeah.
So they've kind of got like that semi Land Raider chassis, but are faster because they've basically just gone like, just pump more petrol into the tank, mate, it'll be fine. Like just overcharge those engines.
Yeah, it's been designed in a way where the hull is smaller than the outside, so I'm presuming that they're just taking those side panels as being heavier armor.
Yeah.
So it does make sense.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, they're relatively cheap as well for what they do.
Yeah, so
they're like what, 180 something?
They're elites, aren't they? 165 point base for the
are they elites in the points?
No, sorry, they were elites. I was looking at the elite slot. They're heavy support in the points. 165 base. If you want to take a couple of las cannons on the sponsors, it's 20 points. Heavy bolters are 15.
To be with your sponsors, which you're going to do. So anywhere between 195 and 100 and 205.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll take that over a Predator.
Yeah.
For the 30-ish points more than a Predator.
Yeah.
Your gun is flat 6 rather than 2d3, like the autocannon version.
Yeah.
Lower range, but you're faster. But you've got better built-in AP, and you've got a 2-up save, and you've got more wounds.
Yep.
Yeah. For 30 points more, that's pretty good. And that's just your basic battle tank. I think your Arcus is interesting. So that's the missile launcher one. I'd probably just take a Scorpius though.
Probably.
It's maybe I don't know. I'm undecided. I really like the look of it. That's why I like it. The Venator's pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he does
flat 6.
Yeah, if you stay still.
If you stay still.
Yeah, with 3 shots, strength 10. Yeah, he's pretty cheeky.
Strength 12.
Oh, strength 12. Okay, that's nice. And you're not a fan of the Punisher, you said.
No, because I think there's better things to take. The Punisher is, yes, it's got a high rate of fire, but I couldn't see myself taking it over the other 4.
Sure.
Really.
What was it? Heavy 18?
Heavy 18, strength 6, -1, damage 1. 36-inch range.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to absolutely rip through hordes.
Yeah.
But Marines kind of already do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not sure if that... It depends how many points he is, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, if you were going to take one, I would take one of the others.
Yeah, or just take a few rapier batteries with the quad heavy bolters. It's far better.
Yeah.
Infantry.
Yeah.
Especially if you're facing Marines. Damage 1 just isn't really going to do the business anymore.
Yeah. I mean, damage 1 has a place. You just sort of chip away at them. But I think the Sakaran battle tank is just the best of them because it's an all-rounder. I'm a big fan of jack of all trades. The Omega is hilarious, however, because they describe it as an anti-tank weapon.
It's not.
It's really not. Even if you overcharge it, the average is you're going to do 9 damage to something.
You might kill a Rhino if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
However, what it's really good at is killing Space Marines.
Yeah,
because 6 shots of strength 8 -3 flat 2 damage.
Yeah.
Yep. Remove that 5-man unit, please.
Yeah.
Well, most of that 5-man unit.
Yeah.
I like the Omega. I think the normal Sakaran's better.
Yeah.
Because it's always flat damage free. Sure, it's lower strength and lower AP, but it's just better against more targets.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk from like a meta perspective, there is a lean towards free wound models at the moment. So damage free is really good.
Indeed.
So that's the Sakarans. I think they're overall winners, barring maybe the Punisher. Yeah, maybe. I think I need to do a little bit more deep diving on him. The Rapiers you've spoken about previously, they are good. They are cheap. Bit weird with the models. I get it. It's to streamline the use of them. Basically, you only put one crew to the side now. The other crew is supposed to be kind of on the same base. He still gets to shoot his bolt gun, but now they can't run off once the thing's been destroyed. But you can't charge them, you can't attack them, you measure everything from the rapier. I get why they've said it, because it's to keep it nice and simple and easy to use, whilst also allowing you to use the models that you've bought on the table. But it would actually have just been easier to say, don't use the crew.
A really easy way to fix this would be to, in the kit, supply one large base. Rather than having a base for the rapier and then 2 bases for the Marines, just do one large base.
And it probably wouldn't surprise me if people did that, because you can't even do stuff like, I mean, I say you can't even do stuff like this is a good thing that you can't do this, in my opinion, to reduce the amount of shenanigans that are available. You can't use that lone crew member to go, well, I'm in coherency and now I'm going to move around to get that objective.
I did it all the time.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
No,
so it's just, because you never measure from those crew models, you may as well just stick it on a base. Yeah. The only issue with that then would be, because you measure everything to the rapier itself, is now you're extending its footprint.
Yes.
So, but again, it would be easier to just turn around and say, all these models must be on the same base.
Yeah.
But then that causes problems for people going, but I've got them modelled on separate bases, so now I've got to rip apart my model.
It's like
doesn't matter.
Going to Sigmar all over again.
It doesn't really matter what suggestion it is. Like, someone's going to be annoyed, and I get it. You know, you don't want to rip apart your bases if you've done like nice bases on them, to stick them on one base because that's the new rules. But from a game balance design perspective, that would be the easier option. However, you just that's why they've done it, so that people don't have to do that. It just feels like, if you're a brand new player to it and you read that, you would go, why don't I just put them all on one base? But it is where we are, like you say, when you've got people that have been collecting for, nigh on a decade, if not more, you're going to have stuff like that in your collection, which just kind of doesn't fit with current rules. You've got to work around it. And in friendly games, no one's really going to mind.
Yeah. So the rapier I'd always take with the quad heavy bolter.
Yeah. It's great.
It's 85 points. Fantastic.
So good.
The only thing that I haven't decided whether it's a good or a bad thing, is that they are no longer, you can't take them in squads anymore. So previously it was 1 to 3, now it's just 1. So if you want to take 3, you're filling up your heavy support.
But you know what? 9 of them at 85 points? Yeah, no thanks.
That's a good point. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
no thanks.
It's a very good point. Right, okay, argument over. That's it.
Yeah, no. Now, I mean, you know, you've got some other little issues which are a bit more esoteric. You know, they're relatively flimsy vehicles, so they give away Bring It Down. But
They
you
got
know,
one more point, one more wound.
oh, they're 6 wounds now.
Well, they were 4, now they're 5.
Oh, okay. I mean, you know, toughness 5, 3 up save.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're for a vehicle, they're relatively flimsy. But you know what? They still have to be dealt with.
Yes.
You know, and if they're the only vehicles in your army, Bring It Down isn't an issue.
Yeah.
The Scorpius is objectively a loser in terms of not being able to double tap and it costing Martial Legacy and you not getting rerolls and all that sort of stuff anymore. But it's also like 70 points cheaper.
Yeah, I think
Swings and roundabouts.
I think this could upset a lot of people because I think a lot of people really liked the Scorpius before.
Yeah. And I get it. It was very good.
That's probably why.
But that's why.
When you've got everyone messaging you with the same thing, saying, why don't you use Scorpius? It's probably because they're a bit much.
Yeah. How many points is the Scorpius now?
Let's have a little look.
Because before I think it was 2, 3, 5. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong.
Scorpius, wherefore art thou Scorpius? 170 points.
Yeah, so okay, so he's 65 points cheaper-ish.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, you know. But the thing is, you've dropped 60 points and your firepower has halved, and you don't get the rerolls anymore. And you know what? Okay, fine. And I'm sure some people would probably be thinking, but if my firepower's halved, surely my points would halve. No, because that should tell you everything about what it was like before.
Yep.
That it was, as Beard says, maybe a bit too good. I think it's a winner for the game as a whole, but obviously if you own 3 Scorpiuses, I feel for you. But also, you own 3 Scorpiuses, my sympathy was already quite low for you. I'm kidding. Vindicator laser destroyers are interesting.
I like them.
I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think they're better than the normal Vindicator.
Yeah, big time.
Because I think they're about the same points.
Yeah, it was 175 points.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah. I want to overcharge that.
Every day.
Overcharge that. Strength 10, -4, damage 6. Flat damage 6.
I love flat damage stuff. It just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. He's not Martial Legacy either.
No, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, toughness 8, 11
Okay.
wounds.
What is next?
Next is the Dreadnought Drop Pod.
It's a drop pod.
It's a drop
It puts
pod.
your Dreadnought in. You can't put Leviathans or Doradios or any Dreadnought with more than 10 wounds, so you can't put Redemptors in there. It's fine. You know, it's a Dreadnought drop pod. It's really cool. There are certain things that you can do with things like your Ironclads or Brayath Ashmantle, which is hilarious. And you can put them in there and just cause a real problem turn 1. If you've got a Dreadnought drop pod and a couple of Death Storms coming down, that's actually pretty interesting.
Steel Rain returns!
The Steel Rain? Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting.
Unleash the Ultramarine drop pods!
You know, you could do that, and then you're starting to block off your opponent's advance with drop pods whilst you're sort of moving up the board with your... I think it could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you're putting a lot of pressure on... I mean, it's a Dreadnought drop pod. It's really cool.
Yep.
The Termite.
Yeah.
Now, he went up a lot of points. He went up to like 180 from like 120 or something, 125. But he's pretty good. He lost attacks.
Yeah.
He's lost his weird mortal wound doing thing, but he's D3 plus 6 damage against vehicles.
Okay.
Now he's only weapon skill 4. He's got to make the charge, but he's beefy. He's toughness 8.
Toughness 8 and 14 wounds.
Yeah. You might be going, well, why is he toughness 8? Because he's drilling underground. You've got to be pretty hard to drill underground.
Yep.
Still transport stuff, still arrives turn 2, and then the unit inside disembarks with all your usual restrictions.
You put on the Volkite charges for them, wouldn't you?
I think so, yeah. I'd pay the points for the Volkite. 5 melter guns, which is just brilliant. Like, I mean, he's expensive, and he's not... Is he ballistic skill free?
Yes.
Yeah. He's expensive, but if you leave a tank undefended or unscreened turn 2, he's going to make some real havoc. He's not as great at killing non-vehicles anymore, but that's okay. I think he's worth his points.
Yeah.
He was already quite cheap, in my opinion. I think 180, maybe a little bit too much, but again, we kind of need to see them on the board and get some practice in with them. I know obviously Stig has I think he's got 2
I think it's
for,
a couple, yeah.
for AdMech. So Stig will be running them soon. Obviously that's the AdMech version, but it's basically the same. They get canticles instead of Angels of Death, so they won't have their AP 5 melter guns and their extra attack on the charge. But what they will get is stuff like Shroud's Arm or re-rolling ones to hit with their shooting attacks.
It's always nice with a
Yeah, exactly.
melter.
Yeah. You know, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We go on to the flyers. I think the flyers are all very expensive. That's just a general thing for flyers in 9th edition.
Yeah, they're in a funny spot, aren't they?
I don't have a problem with them being in a funny spot because, again, things like flyers and Titanic units, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, guys, they do not belong in a skirmish-sized game of 40k, which is basically what 2,000 points is. In your Apocalypse games, your massive 4,000, 5,000 point games, go to town. I don't see why a flyer would be skimming over a skirmish. Where I think flyers should be, and I get why this isn't a thing, because they had this once in the history of Games Workshop, and it was hilarious. Don't know if you played with the old Demon Hunters Codex in 3rd edition. You could buy an orbital bombardment as a heavy support slot for Grey Knights.
I want one.
Yeah, it was really cool. You could buy a bombardment. Now, obviously, that doesn't have a model, so the cynics of you out there are obviously thinking, well, obviously that's why they don't have it, because, you know, that's, you know, there's nothing for them to sell. Well, they can't, you know, they can't sell you something which doesn't exist. I get it. But that's what flyers to me should feel like.
Yeah.
You should have your 2 flyer slots and you buy a bombing run for points. And the flyer itself doesn't exist because it's 10,000 feet up in the air. But what it's doing is going, and then it flies off.
Yeah.
And you can do it every turn. It costs X amount of points. You just pick a unit and it does a bombing run. That's what it should be, in my opinion. There's a very, 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 very big tangent there. But as it is, it goes back to the original point of, because the flyers as models exist, they need to be accounted for in points, and they just... It feels like since they've introduced them, I think it was towards the end of 6th edition with flyers, they don't know what to do with them. They've made them at one point they were just skimmers.
Yeah.
They were just like, they just acted like land speeders, basically. Didn't work. Then they made them basically dominant by going, yeah, it's 6s to hit them. They can't be shot at with blast weapons. So when you had templates, and they're cheap. Cheap. Then in beginning of 8th edition, they were really good because you could stack minuses and because they were cheap for their firepower. Now they're all very expensive, in my opinion. I just don't think flyers have a place as much anymore. Some do.
They're all kitted out generally with very expensive weaponry as well. Like the Zyphon Interceptor here has 2 twin las cannons.
Yeah, which... Yeah, I mean, you don't pay for those in the points cost. It's 235 points base. But what we can glean from other war gear options is when a twin las cannon comes in at around about 30 to 40 points, you are paying for those points in that points cost. Yeah. And that is evident. And now it's pretty tough. It's 12 wounds, toughness 7. But all it is anti-tank. It can't hold objectives, and it's relatively easy to kill them. And it's just, I don't want to see us go back to the hard-to-hit rule of 7th edition where you needed 6s to hit them regardless, unless you're an anti-aircraft weaponry. But at their price point, they just die. They just die, and they die easily. I mean, you saw it in the Space Wolves game, because that's one of the next ones we're going to talk about. He's a big loser, is the Fire Raptor. Yeah. And there was a time where the Fire Raptor was everywhere.
Yeah. Look at all the guns it's got.
Yep.
Good lord.
There was a time where people were running 2 Fire Raptors, if I remember rightly. Yeah. That was a time. It was a thing. Look, is it worth the 400-ish points now? If it gets to do something, maybe.
Well, yeah. It featured, if anyone hasn't watched it, it featured in the game recently, and let's put it this way, it wasn't able to recoup its points costs.
No.
I mean, on paper, it's got 2 quad heavy bolters, it's got 24 heavy bolter shots, which is cool.
Which is insane.
And then it also has a 10-shot bolt cannon. It also has missile launchers. It's also got 18 wounds. The trouble is, once that's gone, and it's going to be gone pretty quickly, let's face it, because there's so much there that has to be in your opponent's in the army to deal with vehicles now. It's going to last a turn, and then
And I mean, if it doesn't, it's got machine spirit, so you can burn 2 CP to make it on its full profile and stuff. So again, your opponent has to kill it, which means that it has a strange role in that it has to absorb so much firepower to be worth it, and it kind of does that job well enough. Kind of, because if it's protecting the rest of your army, it's points well spent. But because it's such a big chunk of your army, it's a very expensive distraction con effects. Very expensive. I think the Storm Eagle's much the same. You're paying a lot of points for transport capacity. We know the Storm Raven isn't amazing. The Storm Eagle is not much better. I think the Flyers are just generally losers as a result of the direction that the game is going in. The fact that it's a Martial legacy on top of it is just okay.
Yeah, it's a bit kick in the shin.
Kick in the shin.
Yeah.
My shin. Damn it. And speaking of kicks in the shin, when it comes to Martial legacy, all of the super heavies. Now, super heavies are difficult to run anyway because they're costing you 3 CP, and they do not get your traits. Some of you have asked how and why this is a thing, or why don't you get it? Because it says that any detachment, so if you read the core rules, it specifically says that fortifications, auxiliary support, and super heavy auxiliary do not get detachment benefits, and that's where your things like your OBSEC and your Legion traits or your chapter tactics are. So you're not getting any benefit from them unless you are going to run 3 of them in a super heavy detachment. At which point, that's your army, really. I mean, you could probably run them and a patrol. And that would be a spectacle.
Yeah.
But that is costing you 9 CP to run, because if each one costs you a CP and it's already 6 CP, you're not starting with any CP.
So my thing with Lords of War in this book, and maybe in general, is that it's the kind of thing that you take great pride in building and painting. It's a centerpiece for your army. You take it to Warhammer World for a Crusade game.
Yeah.
You put it back in the box and you go to Bugman's and have a beer.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic day out.
Yeah, it's a talking point.
Yeah.
It's a talking point.
Yeah. No one ever sees a Mastodon and goes, meh. It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
Everyone's like, wow, you got a Mastodon.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you're paying 800 points for that Mastodon.
Yeah.
Now the Mastodon's amazing. He's got like 40 wounds and he's toughness 9. And he's got void shields and he can carry 40 infantry and dreadnoughts and stuff. And it's hilarious. And you can literally build an army that is just like, I'm deployed.
Yeah. He just drive around. And it's like the Chaos Lord mum just like going around and dropping off the kids to school in the Mastodon. See you later, kids. It's like, oh, see you later,
and there could be some really funny builds that you do with it. You know, it's like, okay, what's your, like, from a Chaos perspective, like what's inside your Mastodon? 40 berserkers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Or well, actually, no. We should just get a Mastodon for Bone. Just like, okay, what's inside the Mastodon? Well, I've got a Hellbrute. Okay, cool. I've got Khan. Yes. I have a Exalted Champion. Yes. And then I have 28 Berserkers. 2 units of 10 and a unit of 8. Anything else? No.
Yeah.
That's the army.
Bone Wagon. We should do that.
He's got his mustache painted on the front.
Oh god, yeah.
Like and that's hilarious. And then when it explodes in a D6 plus 6 radius for like 2d6 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just ludicrous. But that's the point. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
It's fun. And that interestingly, that particular type of list is very eggs and butter. And some armies will just go, oh no. Other armies will go, great.
Yeah.
I'm just going to blow it up turn 1 and take out half your army in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
But you're paying the points for it. You're paying a huge amount of CP investment for it. And it's like what you say, Beard. It's you're going to bring them to a fun game, and you're going to bring them for the spectacle of it, or you're going to be someone who, you know, runs multiple stompers in a tournament list. Pray for Stomper. He's come out quite well in this book. You know, so it's for a lot of fun, but it's also, these are the kinds of things that you just want to sort of turn around and say, and again, this is going back to my flyer element, and this is my personal opinion, these things do not belong in 2,000 point games. They don't really feel like they belong. And I can't justify taking them from like, you know, if you're talking from like a tactical point of view, and some of you that are better tournament players and that are, and when I say that, I mean actual tournament players, because I've not played in a tournament in like 2 years, they just don't feel worth it to me.
I feel like that's where Forge World's coming from, or the rule writer of this book. I think the intention is to say, look, the models are here, they're available, if they're in your army, you can use them, but they're not designed to be used in a normal size game.
Yeah. Or alternatively, they're not designed to replace your existing models. They're here to supplement it with really cool stuff.
Yeah.
They're not here to replace the rest of your codex by sheer virtue of being so brokenly better than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, if we let's take the Typhon, for instance, the cheapest Lord of War in the book. It's 350 points before the sponsors. It's toughness 8, it's got 20 wounds, and it's got 2 up save. Cool. It's got 1 big gun, which is short range, 24-inch range, heavy 2d6 blast, strength 10, -4, damage 3. I mean,
it's okay.
It's okay. Exactly, it's okay. Yeah. That's it. For 350 points before your sponsored weapons, I mean, take a Leviathan and then some other and a couple of other things.
Well, you can take it for but how many points are the sponsors? Well, let's just keep him bare bones. Let's keep him completely bare bones.
Yeah, you don't have to take the sponsors.
Yeah, I'll take a Leviathan.
Yeah.
I'm not spending 4 CP for the benefit of the Typhon.
Yeah.
4
CP.
Like 4 CP, and that is a real kicker of the Martial Legacy.
Yeah.
And that's where I do disagree with it in some aspects, because you almost don't want to, like, it just feels like, and again, they've kind of done it for the fluff reason, because these are supposed to be super duper rare, right? But if you only want to take 1, you're already paying 3 CP for it. Yeah. Like, you don't need to pay more. Yeah. Now, what would be interesting is if they had a rule, if Martial Legacy was, the first one is free, but to represent you calling on even more of the chapter's relics, if, you know, and you have Martial Legacy, for each model after the first model with this rule costs a CP. Yeah. So if you want to take a Typhon, it would cost you your 3 CP. You want to take a Leviathan, it doesn't cost you anything. You want to take 2 Leviathans, it costs you a CP. Might be a bit more palatable, or at least with the super heavies. But, you know, so average is 7 shots. You're going to hit with 5, you'll wound with 5, you'll kill 5 models.
Yeah.
Okay. You might kill a tank with that.
Maybe.
You get, 7 shots. You'll hit with 5. It'll be freeze to wound against most tanks, so you'll wound with 3. You do 9 damage. You haven't killed a rhino.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that it should be killing 350 points every turn.
No, of course not.
But it should also, something like that, you know, which is designed to blow apart bunkers, should look at a rhino and go, yeah. And considering that it's 1 gun, you can't like split your fire or anything. And the same applies to most of them. Like, they're certainly more viable than they were, because they aren't like 900 points or whatever the Fellblade used to be, ridiculous sort of levels. Yeah. But they're just not, you know, they're certainly something fun to use. They're a showpiece model, and that's kind of where they're gonna be. Yeah. That's that on the super heavies. It applies for all of them. Yeah. Really. Apart from maybe the Mastodon in like a funny meme list filled with 40 berserkers. Maybe. Mastodon meta. I mean, if someone wins a tournament with a Mastodon, I'm gonna be well happy. Yeah, that's kind of it. And then you've got the super heavy flyers, same boat as normal flyers, compounded by being super heavies. Yeah. You know, 800 points for a Thunderhawk. Okay, sure, I guess. Like, he's not doing a huge amount. Again, spectacle. If you own a Thunderhawk, you can now use your Thunderhawk in a game of 2,000 points. You are going to be severely handicapping yourself, but it'll look pretty awesome.
Yeah, it'd be sweet. Then you can go Bugmans.
Yeah, then you go Bugmans. Unless, you know, you're actually playing at Warhammer World, in which case you can't, because you can't play at Warhammer World. Right I think you can go to Bugmans, though, for takeaway.
Yeah. I'm excited for next year.
Well, why are we assuming that next year is going to be going to be. It's not going to go to like 1 second past midnight, and it's like everything is back to normal.
Might do.
I hope so. Oh God, I hope so.
That's
it, really. Yeah. I mean, I think points-wise, for the most part, things are pointed relatively okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's just the inherent issues with some of the units were already there regardless of points. So your super heavies and your flyers, basically. Outside of a few that we've mentioned. Now, interestingly, we'll touch upon the Grey Knights because they are in here as a separate thing, and then that will be it for the day.
Yeah, one last thing that I do like as an addition to these rules is the smokescreen stratagem. I do quite like that.
Yeah, because obviously these were written with the Space Marine Codex in mind, and smokescreen is a thing.
Yeah.
It makes some of your stuff actually pretty survivable because you've got bang, slap a -1 to hit on them for 1 CP.
Did it on Leviathan, it's pretty cool.
Do they have smokescreen?
They do.
Ooh, okay, but remember your Leviathan's not as tough anymore because he's not toughness 8. But he's lost 120 points, so he's cheaper per wound, and he's gained a -1 to hit for a CP, and he's also gained -1 damage, but he's not survivable, right? I still think they're really cool. I know we talk about the Leviathan a lot, but it's just cool. So the Grey Knights, they have like 2 unit entries. They've got a Grey Knight Thunderhawk, I think.
Yes.
It's a Thunderhawk. And a Grey Knight Land Raider.
Yes.
Land Raider Banisher. It's a badass name.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, it's a Land Raider. Same issues with Land Raiders always apply.
Yep.
And they've got Psy Cannons on the side. I think that's it. There's nothing new to them, is there?
Yeah, 2 heavy incinerators and a twin Psy Cannon.
2 heavy incinerators. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a Grey Knight Land Raider. If you want to run a more fluffy Land Raider, you can run that. And it's not bad. It pumps out a bunch of shots with its twin las cannons and its incinerators. Like lots of strength 6 -1 shots from that thing. Nice. Like pretty good. That's kind of, and the Thunderhawk's Thunderhawk. I think that's it for Marines, isn't it? Yes. Well, I hope you enjoyed our little rant. Yeah, I mean, any final thoughts?
I think on the whole, what I am quite pleased to see, and I think we touched on it a couple of times, is it's not return to, but the balance.
Yes.
Everything is more balanced for the most part. There's nothing in here where you're like, this is a must take. You're going to see this at every single tournament.
Yep.
And I like that. It's good. People should be winning tournaments because of their ability to play the game really well, not because they find the most busted unit and taken 3 of them. It's going to make for more interesting games. You're not going to sort of see an army set up in front of you and think, oh God, they've brought X, Y, and Z. This is going to be rubbish. It's just more balanced. It's good. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think you nailed my thoughts there as well. Outside of a few little issues, which are they're more just annoyances to me on a personal level, and I don't know why. I just take offence to including fluff and then not having the fluff consistent. I think for the most part, the Marines have come out very, very well. Your auto takes and your obnoxiously powerful stuff has been toned down a lot. Yeah. And that's only a good thing for the game. Yeah. I understand it's really frustrating if you built your army around Forge World stuff and it's now costing you 7 CP to run it, and it's not nearly as effective. But remember, everything's gotten cheaper, so now you can run more toys, which is always fun because everyone loves playing with toys. Is it as competitively viable to run a Forge World army anymore in terms of just running that? Maybe not, but there's definitely some really good units that can really do the business for you. I think Marines have come out very, very nicely.
Yep.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
So a bit of a long form format, this one. This is probably how they're all going to be because there's not really much to divide into good, bad, and ugly. It's more just these are more just stream of consciousness.
It's kind of like a summary, essentially.
Because as we said at the beginning, we're not going to sort of look at this and go, okay, well, the Landspeeder Tempests are really good with White Scars because of their various stratagems, or the Leviathans are really good with Iron Hands because of their various stratagems. We could do that, but that would just take even longer than this already has. So that is part 1 of 4. We will be back very, very soon with the Chaos version of Space Marines and all of their associated tidbits. Probably similar length, although a lot of what we've talked about today will apply there. It's going to be a bit more pertinent. But until then, we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.